episode of the Real Physician Reacts. Remember, if you are overwhelmed by the healthcare system, underappreciated by this healthcare system, looking for the voice of reason, you have found it. And guess what? This week is a doozy of an episode because we're going to be talking about a disease that about 10 years ago, we essentially said, you know what, this disease is out of there, it's eradicated. But unfortunately, because of the growing epidemic here in this country associated with vaccinations, more importantly, misinformation regarding vaccinations, we're seeing a continued rise in not only adults not getting vaccinated, but more importantly, parents not getting vaccinated. And when we talked about COVID, we talked about this aspect of freedom of choice and all these other, I don't know what's going on. I don't know the safety of this medication. So those are the reasons why they were using not from adults and even kids not to vaccinate. But here we're going to talk about a vaccine that's been here since 1960 that was essentially eradicated a disease that's now again making another comeback, right? So we are focused our sights on Ohio, and more important, Columbus, Ohio, where we are currently undergoing the most recent measles outbreak. And as a internal medicine physician, I don't deal with kids, right? It's usually not something that comes up. You know, I got kids myself, but I don't have to take care of kids. So there are certain diseases that as an adult, I didn't really have to think about asking for because, it was by the time you were an adult, you had either gone through it or vaccinated. So I didn't even need to think about it. But unfortunately, and again, I kind of mentioned because of misinformation that's been spewing for decades, more and more parents have, again, continued to elect to say, you know what, I'm not going to get vaccinated. More importantly, I'm not going to let my kids get vaccinated. And now here are the consequences. And one of the things that I love is that, especially from those anti-vaxxer groups, they are, especially for COVID, right? They are picketing. They are loud and obnoxious at times, all over social media, all over the public, any chance to get. But whenever an outbreak occurs, like the outbreak occurs, they're absolutely silent. Like there's not one anti-vaxxer sitting here saying, no, it's freedom of choice. Who cares if the kids get sick? Not one single person is online fixing their fingers to type that. So what tends to happen, because they made a decision off of misinformation, guess what? Now medicine and healthcare has to try to fix it and, more importantly, try to save lives. So we're going to be, again, focusing on this aspect of a measles outbreak again. And I talked about this on my TikTok where I said, I can't believe I'm actually having to give an update on the measles. More importantly, having to give an update on a measles outbreak, which should not be occurring. Again, this is just like smallpox. This is a disease that we essentially eradicated because we had good information, but more importantly, we had great treatment course, right? So let's get into it, y'all, because again, I think I'm as shocked and surprised as you guys are, right? So measles outbreak in Columbus increases to 46 cases, 3 sites exposed. And when they talk about 3 sites, they're mentioning the 3 sites as far as counties. So we talk about daycares being affected, schools being affected, and as the story continues to grow, more and more kids being, unfortunately, having to suffer the detriment of parents who are following uninformed information, and now they're having to deal with it, right? So let's kind of break down this story here for you guys. So 46 cases again. Columbus has nearly doubled over the past weeks with exposure in 3 places across the city. In Columbus, Ohio, Health Commissioner Dr. Makisha Roberts said during a news conference that cases are spread out into 3 public health jurisdictions: Columbus Public Health, Franklin County Public Health, and Ross County Health District, right? So again, this isn't an isolated incident that's staying in one little central location. This is a disease, and if you guys know, and again, and someone asked me, right? Someone asked me on social media, like, why aren't people afraid of, a disease like the measles? And I think it's because we did such a great job eradicating it. We really haven't had to sound off here doing presentations and lectures on measles because we know if you get a vaccine, it's usually a non-subject. So I think this aspect of fear that should be there is not there because this was a disease that was essentially eradicated. Like this was a disease that we didn't have to think about. So now people are seeing exactly what happens right when you get the disease. And I'm going to spare my viewing audience and my listener audience. I'm going to spare y'all. I'm not even going to show you pictures of what it looks like when kids develop measles. I want you to do that for yourself. That's my homework to you. Go ahead and just Google measles in children and just go off the images, just so you can get a visual picture of what it does, right? And again, I wish it was only a visual issue of concern, but because it causes so many more issues and problems in terms of not only hospitalizations up to including death. Yes, it can cause death. Again, I hate that I have to spell it out. But when you have such growing misinformation around a vaccine, people need to know that your decisions can cost either your life or, more importantly, your kid's life. And if that's information you're okay with, then I need you to be vocal now. Like I need you to be just as vocal during this outbreak about how you're steading strong on your non-vaccination status as you are when there is no outbreak. Because when there isn't an outbreak, I'm going to be vocal about getting vaccinated. When there is an outbreak, I'm going to be vocal about getting vaccinated because I'm consistent, right? And you can be consistent when you're operating at a level of truth and you're not operating in a sense of misinformation. So there's a lot of parents up there who are now looking sick in the face because they're having to take their kids out of school, to hospitals, to get seen, have to care for kids dealing with disease that about 20 years ago we said is disease we don't even have to think about. So again, and this kind of mentions where in the first kind of reported. The message is clear. If you have a child who is 12 months of age or older and they have not received the MMR vaccines, measles, mumps, and rubella, mind you, MMR, 3 different diseases in one vaccine. So I'm not even talking about the mumps. I'm not even talking about rubella. Right now, we're just focusing on the one disease that can affect you if you don't get this vaccine. Like, lo and behold, if I got to start talking about mumps and rubella, I'm going to call one of my pediatric friends and say, hey, come help me out. I really thought I never would have to talk about mumps and rubella, but clearly, like the growing consensus is that I may have to. Please make every effort you can to get them vaccinated this week. So again, this is the physician up there saying, hey, please, like y'all see what's going on. If you are sitting here and your kid is not vaccinated, stop it. Stop what you're doing now and go get them vaccinated. Columbus Public Health recently discovered that some of the infectious people were out in public places. Guess what? That's what occurs. And they actually list some of the places. You know, some people went to Macy's, some people were at church, some people were at JCPenney. So, and again, when you got a sick toddler, that's what happens, right? And again, when you have parents who, and again, I've always said vaccination, yes, it's an individual decision, but it's a decision that you make that affects the group. So when you make a decision that affects the group and you don't care about what happens to the group, I'm going to look at you funny. I'm going to look at you a certain way when you know the decision you make not only affects yourself personally. Because again, if this was a disease, like if somehow we can pinpoint it so that if you say, hey, I'm not going to be vaccinated, so I only want it to affect me, like, all right, we can have a discussion, personal choice. But if I can somehow get affected by your lack of action because you don't care what happens to me, if I get disease, I'm going to have a problem with your decision. It just is what it is. And I want to make sure I highlight this. I really want to make sure I highlight this point because I already know someone is in the comments. Someone is going to watch this video. Someone can't wait to type, how do you know about their vaccination status? So they made sure they told you right in this article right here. All 46 children were unvaccinated for the measles. 19 of them had to be hospitalized. Let me repeat. Right now, as I speak, all 46 children unvaccinated affected by the measles. So save your typing when you want to say, how do you know that them being not vaccinated made a difference? There you go. There you go. So even if child 47 happens to be vaccinated, remember that the first 46 were unvaccinated. And I want you to tell me what those odds are. And if you think those are good odds, I want you to give me, 6 numbers for the lotto. Like, this is, again, a problem arise that is a direct result of misinformation. So misinformation that was taken now has you having your kids sitting in hospitals, sitting out, being isolated, ostracized, and hopefully do well, right? Again, fortunately, medicine, right? We accept you as you are. So when you make decisions that aren't in your best interest, especially for your kids, we're gonna take care of you. When you make decisions that are in your best interest for your kids, we're gonna take care of you. We gotta do what we have to do. But I want to make sure that the same energy that you had when you were saying, vaccination, that's not me. No, I'm not putting that dangerous thing in my kid's body. I want you to talk to those who've been affected right now. I want interviews for these parents right now. And I want them to explain why that was a good decision. Their kids in the hospital right now. I want them to explain why it was a good decision for them not to be vaccinated. That's all I ask for. I want the consistency. Roberts said about 25% of the population in that area is unvaccinated. You know what that means? There's 25% of people who still are going to be at a high risk to get the disease. And guess what? You know what's happening right now with that 25% of the population? They're scared. They are scared. If they got kids, they are staying away. They are covered. They're doing everything they can do. And we're not even going to spend this show on here talking about the signs and symptoms associated with measles. No, I'm not doing that. Because for those who are not vaccinated, right, you should know what the signs and symptoms are. You should know what the risk factors are. You should know what it means to try to protect yourself from it. Because when you make that decision not to get vaccinated, you're saying, hey, I'm willing to take the risk because I'm educated myself to that point. So if you're sitting here watching this video and you don't know what the signs and symptoms are associated with measles and you're not vaccinated, especially if you're sitting up in Ohio, that's a problem. You should probably do something about it. You should probably talk to somebody about it. You should probably do some Googling about it. Like, for those who are not vaccinated, I always wonder, like, is there some support group or website or somewhere where, like, though all of you who are not vaccinated congregate and say, okay, all right, we're not vaccinated, but like, let's educate ourselves on these diseases? Like, I always ask that. That's just a question that I have, just because I want to know, right? Because I feel like, all right, maybe they know something we don't, right? Maybe there's some information that they have, or maybe they do a good job sticking together, so it's not a concern. Because that's the issues I got, man. We got, again, all 46 children were unvaccinated for measles. 54% of infections occurred in children between the ages of 1 to 2. 17% occurred in children between the ages of 3 to 5. 18 of those cases occurred at schools and daycares. When y'all were scared for the monkeypox, when y'all were scared to take y'all kids swimming, to hotels, to the pool, and all fly on airplanes because of the monkeypox, again, this is my homework to you. I want you to Google what it looks like when your child gets measles. And for those who have young children, especially they're not vaccinated, I want you to go look and try to imagine what your kid's going to look like if they got measles all over them. If you're sitting there unvaccinated as an adult, I want you to think about, wow, what happens if I get measles? What does it look like on me? I was scared for the monkeypox. What does it look like if I get the measles? Like, what? Oh my God, what happens when you get measles? Do I feel? Do I itch? Do I burn? Do I pain? I want you to do that. That's the homework for me. Remember, this Real Physician Reacts is just me calling out what I see, right? I'm not even going to educate you. That's for the Medicine Monday series, right? You want to be educated, that's for Medicine Mondays. Here is my observation on what's going on across the social media landscape, and this is what I got to talk about, right? It's again, in this article, and I will put the link to the article in the description, so if you want to read some signs and symptoms, it's there. Although preventable through vaccinations, measles is considered dangerous and sometimes deadly. About 1 in 5 people who get measles will be hospitalized. Remember, 46 kids, 19 hospitalizations. Again, I want you guys to do the math on what that number equals up to if that's correct. 46 kids, 19 folks ended up in the hospital. Again, you guys do the reading on your own. The disease is highly contagious. Around 90% of unvaccinated individuals who are exposed to measles will become infected. 90% of those who are unvaccinated, if they are exposed to measles, they will get it. You're not hiding. There's no teas that you're going to drink to avoid this. So if you're sitting there unvaccinated in Columbus, Ohio, you got friends who are in Columbus, Ohio, be careful, be warned. It's there. And again, this story is just growing. That number 46, depending on when you watch or listen to this video or audio, will be outdated because more is coming. Like, don't think that 46 is the topping out and we're good to go. We could put this story to bed. More is coming along the way, right? Columbus Public Health urges Ohioans to vaccinate against the measles. Health officials have encouraged parents with children who are not vaccinated against measles to get the shot. Y'all get the shot, get the shot, get the shot. No matter what your age, if you are an adult not vaccinated, take the MMR vaccine. If you are a child and eligible to get vaccinated, get the MMR vaccine, right? That's what they're telling y'all. This is what they're saying, right? So again, this is the food for thought that I have for you guys. We're talking about a disease. I'm talking about a disease that was essentially eradicated a couple of decades ago. We weren't even talking about it. We didn't think, they don't even teach it like that in schools like that. Because they're like, we got this disease. Measles used to be this bad thing. Vaccines came around, took it to the woodshed, got it up out of there. Now you don't have to worry about it. Oh, sorry. Now we do got to worry about it. Oh, sorry. Now it is a concern that we have to think about. I just shake my head, y'all. I'm just shaking my head, and I'm hoping when you guys read the news, when you guys start again, do your own homework again. You don't need to learn the pathophysiology associated with measles. Just do measles and images and see what it looks like if your kid gets it, and imagine what happens if your kid gets it. And if you're okay, remember, this is the land of the free. Not free from consequences, but this is the land of free of choice. Remember, you have freedom of choice. You do not have freedom of consequences. So if you make that freedom to say, I'm not going to get my kids vaccinated, that don't mean that you're excluded from the consequences of not doing that. It don't. All right. So again, it just is what it is. I'm yours truly, Dr. Barry. Thank you for joining for another episode of Real Physician Reacts. I'm going to see you guys.